Well, joining me now is the Chief Executive Officer of Blaze Media, Glenn Beck.
May I say something just to start? Would we be having this debate in this way if Hamas would have done to England what they did to Israel? Would we be having this debate? Because I don't think we would. I think America would be over there. I think the whole world would be over there, and we'd pound them into sand until they surrendered. But I don't understand why we're having debates here on actions that Barack Obama took, and nobody really said anything about it. They weren't screaming for an act of war. I know this is a very bad situation, and I hope to God. I mean, I'm glad that Donald Trump is our president, because I wouldn't have had the balls to do it. I think it was the right thing to do, but I wouldn't have had the balls to do it.
Well, it's really interesting, because I know that historically, I mean, look, you know, I'm not going to pick on you for this, but I happen to be the editor. Right. It'll be obvious what I'm saying, but I was editor of the Daily Mirror newspaper, one of the big national papers in the UK, for many years, and I campaigned vociferously on the front page after front page against the Iraq war. And it was particularly contentious in the UK because we were the Labour supporting newspaper and Tony Blair was a Labour Prime Minister. So it was a huge sort of deal over here. And I know that you initially supported the Iraq war, and then afterwards you later accepted that that had been a mistake, which, you know, again, is part of your strength, I think.
You know, I think, Piers, you can't silence people when they're wrong, because hopefully they're on the road to becoming right.
Yes.
But you only get that if you have a debate. And I will tell you that I was for Afghanistan. I was a very big, war hawk. Let's go in and just do it. Let's do it. I'm not that way anymore, because I've seen the pattern. It doesn't work out. America needs to mind its own business. We can't export what we have. I mean, I have hopes for the Middle East. I have hopes for Iran. I pray for the people in Iran. They're a very big danger. But, the one thing, again, I go back to Donald Trump. I don't think he's being duped. In 2016, maybe. I mean, he has told me he didn't really know what he was up against. He knows what he's up against now. He hates war, hates it. As much as he loves tariffs, he hates war. He has told me eye to eye about how he has redesigned, or he had to rebuild, our nuclear arsenal. And in a fashion that I've never seen Donald Trump, he said, Glenn, it can never be used. It is horrifying what can be done now. I know, I helped rebuild it. It can never be used. He hates nuclear war. He hates regular war.
Yeah.
And I think he really believes he did the right thing, and I don't think he's being duped by it.
No, and it's interesting because I know that you were hoping he didn't do what he did. Now that he's done it, and obviously it's incredibly early days, and none of us can be sure what is going to happen, and I wouldn't even attempt to guess. But I certainly think that Trump's intentions were well-intentioned. I think he has said for many years that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon, and he genuinely believed that enriching their uranium stocks from 3.5% to 60% was a dangerous escalation that could only be heading one way. And so he's taken the same action that he did when he took out Soleimani or Baghdadi, when he attacked Syria, when he dropped big bombs in Afghanistan. He's done things strategically as he sees it without actually committing large number of American troops on the ground.
You also have to look at this. Every single president since Clinton has said this, okay? Iran has killed more Americans as a nation than I think any other nation has. They've been an enemy. Every single president has said they cannot have a nuclear weapon. I don't want to go to war with Iran. I don't want any of this. However, when you talk to a B-2 bomber, which I did over the weekend, they have been running this particular run for 15 years plus. We built in White Sands, we built a model of that reactor. This bomb that we dropped, we're the only ones with it in the world. It was made for those reactors, specifically for those reactors. It is so accurate, it can hit the top of a pop can or a Coke can from 50,000 feet. It had to go into a 10 by 10 foot vent. They have been running this over and over again. That's not Donald Trump. That's the American policy. We know that these people are serious when they say they're going to burn first the Jews in the Islamic fiery furnace and then America. We're the great Satan. They have been a threat of ours for a long time. I wish we could have negotiated our way, but it didn't happen. So now we're here. Now what do we do?
Well, as we're talking, I'm just going to read this to you. Reuters and AFP are reporting explosions over Doha. So we're talking Monday evening UK time, Monday afternoon your time in the States. Iranian media saying Iran is attacking US bases in both Qatar and Iraq. And this follows BBC and Fox News reporting credible and imminent threats of Iranian missile attacks on US-run air bases. So that's just breaking as you and I are talking. But clearly that would be a significant escalation. If Iran is targeting US air bases now in the Middle East, what do you think that means as we progress forward?
I don't know. I've been saying to my audience, pray for peace, but prepare for war. This is a war that I think is coming one way or another. I mean, look at the state of Europe, look at the state of England, look at the state of America. I mean, this is a war with Islamists, not Muslims, Islamists, that is going to happen at some point. I think we're at the beginning of a 50-year war with Islamists. And it's disturbing to me. And the reason why is we're not clear. None of our countries, Donald Trump will, but none of our countries will even name what we're against. They won't say it. You know, what I complimented you for doing on this show is actually saying what the truth is and letting all sides. Our governments are silencing, and I think it's because they're afraid. But it's a war that is absolutely coming. And the problem is, I remember I sat in the Oval Office during the Gulf War, or the Iraqi war with George Bush, and he was reading me the riot act because I wasn't happy about the way things were going. And he said to me, I said, you know, you got an election coming up, and what do you think these guys are going to do? And he said something, and he tried to make me feel better, and this actually made me feel horrible. He said, Glenn, don't worry about it. No matter who wins, when they sit behind this desk, they'll be advised by the same voices and they'll realize they have no other options. I left that office thinking, then why do we elect a president? What is happening? We have to break this cycle. Hopefully this we're not being lulled into something or pulled into something that is, long planned. Hopefully we can end this quickly and return to some normalcy in all of our countries. But we have to face the truth. Yeah,
I think I completely concur with you. And like I said, whilst I can absolutely understand why Donald Trump did what he did, and while I think there's a compelling argument that Iran was fast accelerating its way to a nuclear weapon, which everybody basically agrees, apart from Iran and its allies, would be a very bad thing for the world. Once you do strike in the way that the United States struck with these bunker buster bombs, you cannot then control the way the narrative plays out. You don't know how the receiving end of that is going to respond.
I think that that our side is hoping that they are so weakened that they don't have much fight left in them. I would hope that. However, if I said on Friday or Saturday when it happened that if somebody did that to us and just blew up one of our bases in the United States, here in our continental U.S., we would declare that's a declaration of war.
Yeah.
And why would we expect them not to feel that way? The only hope is they're so weakened that it can end quickly.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, I think this attempt to try and pretend it's not a declaration of war, I don't think that flies. I mean, I posted on X, this is America saying it's at war with Iran, right? I mean, you drop 30,000-pound bombs all over the place on nuclear sites in a foreign country. You are except it's a declaration
we've done
of
that
war.
Before. Except we've done that before in other cases, and nobody's had this reaction. But it's not Iran and Israel. For some reason, that's just totally different for everybody.
I mean, what's strange about that whole thing is if you go back into not too distant past of Iran and Israel. Before the revolution in '79, they got on pretty well. It's like a lot of these relationships have been contaminated in the last 40, 50 years.
So I'm doing a show Thursday, Piers, that I'm glad you brought this up, because I was just talking to my producers about the direction I want to go in. And that is, look at Europe today, look at England today, then look at Iran, 1977, 1975. Look, nobody was wearing hijabs, nothing like that. And in 1979, it's over, it's lights out. We can't ignore the poison of Islamists in our own society. We all think that it's not going to happen. It can't happen, but it can. All we have to do is make the distinction between Islamist and a Muslim. One is our enemy. The other is a practitioner of a religion.
I mean, I would expand that to say it's extremism, right? Extremism of any kind should be condemned by all right-thinking people, because extremism is never the right way, just by the very
definition. When are we going to do that?
By the very definition of the word. You are an extremist.
Isn't that in some ways exactly what Donald Trump did? Took a clear line. We've had president after president say, we're not going to let this stand. He does it, and now he's the extremist? I don't know. I think he's standing up for what he believes is coming.
Glenn, what's fascinating, watching the conservative right in the last few weeks has been fascinating for the real schism that's been developing now. What do you make of that? There's always been disagreement, but never quite, it seems to me, on such implacable levels as we're seeing right now, where people are really one way or the other.
I've never seen anything. I'm friends with Ted Cruz. I'm friends with Tucker Carlson. I like both of them. I know Donald Trump. I don't know Elon Musk, but I like both of them. Stop making me choose. I don't think this is helpful for the Republic. We can disagree on things, but to have these arguments that we're having, I mean, I'm sorry, I've known Candace Owens for a long time. I don't know what happened to Candace. She's off on a different planet now. To deny Mangala and everything else is truly horrifying. There's a lot of people that I disagree with that I can still have conversations with. I think this is, in many ways, intentional. We're all being driven to these extremes, and it's either you are this or you are that, and there's nothing in between. That's not real life. All life has nuance. There's no way to navigate. There's no way to defend ourselves, our culture, if we all must be 100% this or 100% that.
And you know what? And I genuinely believe it's been fueled by social media, because what social media does, it fuels tribalism, where people, in the end, they become so tribal, and their echo chamber keeps reinforcing this one singular worldview, that when facts change, they don't want to accept it. If it is negative to their tribe, and it reminds me, I read a book about this several years ago, where I talked about, if you go back in 2,000 years, you would have genuine tribes, right, in the world. And they would be on their own, and they would dress a certain way, and they would cut their hair a certain way, they would eat certain food, they would drink certain drinks, they would have a language which they understood, and they would stay pretty much in their own area amongst themselves. So they only ever knew one way. And then slowly but surely, these tribes edged out and began to travel more, and they encountered other tribes. And these other tribes looked a bit different. They sounded a bit different. They maybe ate different food. They laughed at different things. And these tribes concluded in that experimental moment that the only solution was to kill each other. And I look at what happens on social media now, and it's pretty much the same thing, where the tribes are so locked in to supporting their own side against any invader, as they put it, that even when there is something which self-evidently their own side should condemn, whether it's a right or left, they can't bring themselves to do it. They will fall over themselves to explain, to justify, to excuse, because they feel like they're betraying their tribe.
So I completely agree with that, but I'd like to add one more thing. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and you tell yourself lies and lies and lies and lies, and you get to a point to where at some point you have to reject almost everything you are to tell the truth. And it becomes, you might know, I can't keep living this way. I can't keep living this way. But you have to reject everything that you have built. And that's the problem with these tribes, is we have separated ourselves. And for me to not hate you, I have to reject almost everything that I have built in my own life, because I'm built on hating you now.
Yeah.
That is a really dangerous place. And we're there. And we have to recognize Western civilization, you know, and beyond that, you know, in the Bible, when the Jews go down into Israel, the Lord says, choose life. That is the choice. It is life or death. There is a culture of death through many different factions, if you will. Death or life. We've got to choose life. And the Western civilization has always been about life. If we can't find our way to each other and say, look, I reject this death cult, we're not going to survive.
No.
And if we don't survive, the world becomes a very dark place. And I mean, I don't mean the United States. I mean the entire Western world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that this is why I found what Elon Musk calls the woke mind virus so damaging, because it fueled all that stuff, and often on a kind of preposterous denial of even basic biology and science. And when people started trying to defend the fact that biological men were in women's sport, I was like, we've lost our minds here. What is going on?
And isn't it amazing? The guy who was the biggest on the left, he was a hero for what he did for the environment and electric cars and everything else. The minute he disagrees with them politically,
they trash
he's
him.
dead to them.
Yeah,
they try to destroy his business. They burn his cars. They'd like to kill him. I mean, that should tell you something. You're on the wrong side when that is your reaction.
And also, if you're behaving exactly the same way that you profess to condemn in others, that should tell you it's time to look in the mirror and work out what you're really about. What is your soul actually doing? If you spend all day shrieking one thing and then you behave exactly the same way yourself.
Piers, I have to tell you, I think about England a lot. I pray for England a lot. I don't know if I'm getting on my social media what it's really like in England, but I've seen a difference when I was in London just in 3 years. I was there 3 years ago. I was just there recently. And there is a difference there. And if we don't find a way to wake up, stand up, and bring people to their senses calmly and rationally, all of our countries are going to fall like dominoes soon.
Well, the big problem I have with England is, look, there are many great qualities of England. I think it's been massively overblown. And people like Tommy Robinson and these guys, they are not people that should be taken seriously in this debate, in my estimation. However, notwithstanding that, the insidious attacks on free speech in England have been really, really staggering and alarming to watch. When you get people, you know, grandmothers being locked up for something they posted on Facebook and then delete it because they thought I shouldn't have done that. That's not what a democratic society like the UK should be doing to anybody. I think that obviously we all know, I think, in our gut what the exceptions to free speech are. If you're literally inciting people to kill people, fine. We can all agree that is wrong, right? But when you're expressing a vehement opinion because you may be emotionally overwrought about something, which is genuinely horrific, and you're just spewing off,
or you're just wrong,
and you then calm down and delete that, whatever, and then you're put in prison for 2 years. I just think that is basically, then you're into North Korea, Russia, and everything else, where any criticism of the state does that.
Which brings me right back to where we started. Thank you for having people I strongly disagree with. I disagreed with both of those guests that you just had on. Thank you for having them on. I have to see that. We all have to see that.
I completely
agree. Have to exercise the muscle of curiosity and intelligence and calmness while listening to people we vehemently disagree with.
Yeah, and just final point, but on the guy, the Israeli minister, the reason I was so annoyed was one of the devices used to silence legitimate debate about this is you call somebody something ending in ik or ist. So if you said the biological men in women's sport thing was a problem, you were immediately transphobic. And similarly, if you've criticised Israel's recent strategy in Gaza, which most people find pretty indefensible, even if you've been someone like me that stuck his neck out to defend Israel for many, many months and their right to defend themselves, even if I've tried to be really fair and impartial and go after both sides where I felt they're wrong, that any semblance of criticizing the Israeli government strategy meant I must be anti-Semitic and a Jew hater. And I was really incensed by that. And so when he came on and tried to pretend that isn't what he was saying and that it was about, one or two guests or whatever, that's not what he posted. He was doing that deliberately to try and silence me. And I find that a really insidious thing too.
I agree with you. I've been called the same thing. I bring up George Soros, and suddenly I am an anti-Semite.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Candace Owens brings up the Jewish cabal, and nobody's going to say anything about that. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous.
It is. Glenn, great to talk to you as always.
Thank you.
Come back soon. I always really enjoy our conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, let me ask you something.